morning, Wareham. It is Friday, February 28th. We have a great show here for you, the news headlines, the weather report, and today in history. This morning, not a live guest, but a live guest from Monday. We welcome the Wareham Land Trust, sharing plenty of programs that they have for you, and all these programs are free, so plenty of information coming your way. But first, I would like to take this moment to thank Not Your Average Antiques, an antique shop down Cranberry Highway in East Wareham, for donating the props that you see in the morning show. So stay tuned, because the news and the weather report are next. Toby Hospital prepares for COVID-19 amidst fear of worldwide spread. COVID-19 is a coronavirus that originated from China. Staff at Toby are focusing on controlling the various points of entry to the building, including the emergency room, main entrance, and patients admitted for surgery. Staff are also asking those who enter the building if they had recently traveled to China. Tanya Johnson, the site administrator for Toby Hospital, said hand washing is your best defense. And Dr. Danny Hackner, the South Coast Chief Clinical Officer, added that the surgical masks are not a particularly effective way to avoid contracting the virus. So the hospital is advising those who come to the building, if they see that they're exhibiting any symptoms, they should definitely report it. And before coming to the hospital, please call ahead so they can be betterly prepared for you. And Wareham Police Department confirms the chief position. The Board of Selectmen voted unanimously to make John Walsek the chief. Walsek has served the Wareham Police Department for 30 years. He had served as the acting chief for 2 years prior to his promotion. And the value of the Route 28 transfer station is still up in the air. The Carver Marion Wareham Waste District has hired 2 assessors to determine the value of the Rochester station, but the evaluations were disparate. The committee voted unanimously to have a third evaluation done, to get a third opinion. The evaluation is very important because the committee has agreed that if any town wants to buy an asset like the land on Route 28, the town can buy it from the district at the appraised value. Now, Wareham is interested. They are actually considering buying land to operate as a transfer station after the district wraps up operation at the end of 2020. So that evaluation is very crucial. And the Wareham Tigers Athletic Association endorses Wareham Park, the proposed casino and racetrack facility. Notice Group project could also include athletic facilities and football field. The president of Wareham Tigers Athletic Association, Mr. Jared Chadwick, said that the proposal will grant them with a great opportunity to provide reliable access to proposed facilities. Notice Group proposal is part of the filed bill by Representative Susan Gifford, which would grant the Gaming Commission the authority to offer a slots-only license for the South Coast and Cape Cod region, rather than the full-scale resort casino license currently available. And Wicked Local had the following story. They have reported this morning that a 17-year-old Plymouth male is in custody, charged for the allegedly vandalization of Plymouth Rock that happened earlier this month. Plymouth police have not released the teen's identity. He is charged with 11 counts of felony vandalism to property and 1 count of misdemeanor trespassing on the Plymouth Rock Portico. Plymouth police said they were able to make an arrest thanks to the footage from nearby cameras. And that ends this morning news headlines. Coming up is the weather forecast. Mainly sunny today with high at 39 degrees, winds at 15 to 25 miles per hour. Winds could occasionally gust over 40 miles per hour, mostly clear skies at night with low around 23 degrees. Saturday, that is tomorrow, partly cloudy, high around 38 degrees, winds at 10 to 20 miles per hour, clear skies at night with low around 20 degrees. Generally sunny on Sunday, high around 38, winds at 10 to 15 miles per hour, and low Sunday night, we're looking at 24 degrees. And that concludes this day and this week's weather forecast. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, but a little bit chilly. Anyhow, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to continue with our program. Okay, it is fox season, so get your facts straight from the New England Wildlife Center. Take a look. Foxes are some of our most amazing neighbors. To learn more about them, we decided to visit the New England Wildlife Center, the Cape Cod branch located in Barnstable, to learn the facts. Seen foxes lately? Well, it is the season.
This time of year, foxes are beginning to den. It's important to know foxes will often return to the same dens year after year. And what that means is they're looking for shelter so they can get together in a family unit and have a litter.
That brings us to your backyard. These wild, furry neighbors are not dangerous, but keep your distance.
If you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. There is always a potential that they could have rabies, and that would make them act abnormally. So you should never approach a fox. But if you are concerned that it is neurologic, meaning it can walk weirdly or have a head tilt or circle, you should definitely call your local animal control or wildlife hospital.
The encroachment to your land is driven by survival instincts. Foxes mostly try to avoid a human encounter. However, sometimes they can den in your yard.
So if you have exposed decking or a shed that's lifted a little bit off the ground or a wood pile in your backyard, those are the types of spots that foxes are looking for. So if you're not interested in having foxes near your yard, or you have pets or small kids, it's probably in your best interest this time of year to start to repair those things, close them up, and make sure they are fox-proof.
Why so much fuss about a fox?
Foxes are incredible animals. They're not only interesting to look at, but they're providing a lot of services that make our everyday lives better. Think about rat and rodent problems. They are a natural control on that. They keep our ecosystem balanced, and they keep Cape Cod and Massachusetts healthy. They're nothing to be afraid of. If you're lucky enough to see one at a safe distance, they can be incredibly interesting to look at. The things you want to be careful for is you want to make sure that you're protected, your pets are protected, and the foxes are protected by cutting down on contact, not feeding outside, and making sure that your structures that you've built in your home are fox-proof.
It is okay to sympathize with foxes, especially when you notice that they are in distress or could be sick. Just do not take matters into your own hand. Reach out to your local wildlife center for help.
We get a lot of phone calls this time of year about people who are seeing foxes with mange. A mange is a skin disease that animals can get. It's caused by a mite that burrows into the skin, and it causes them to be very, very itchy, and that causes them to self-traumatize and then open wounds up in their skin. And that poses them to getting secondary bacterial infections, and it further debilitates them so they can't hunt appropriately, and they get skinny and then just get weaker and weaker. So people see foxes out there that are losing their fur, very skinny, and they call us all the time for help. And mange is a treatable illness. It just requires a lot of medications, so we never advise to try to treat them in the wild. It's actually illegal to put food out in the wild for them. So if they are debilitated enough and can be caught by hand or a net, call your local animal control if you see them in your yard, and they can come out and assist you. And once we have them in care, it's a long process and it requires several different types of medications. But if we get it in time, we can definitely treat it.
In addition, if you happen to notice a den under your deck, no matter how cute these babies can be, please do not step in to nurture them.
A fun fact that both mom and dad provide food for the young. So as long as the fox are just past weaning, if you suspect potentially something has happened to mom, dad is still around providing for the babies. But if you've noticed that they're starting to become a little bit more vocal, if both parents haven't returned in a couple of days, then the pups might start wandering a little bit from the den. So at that point, that's when you call your local wildlife hospital or animal control. Never attempt to interact with them yourself. They can become habituated, and that's when they get really used to being around humans, and that's something we do not want to do. Anytime we have kits or pups in our hospital, we try to limit our contact with them just so that they do not see humans as a food source or providing a food source, so that they constantly come up to them. Because if a fox comes up to a person in the wild, they're going to think it has rabies, so that's a bad sign.
One thing to keep in mind is that though foxes are not threatening, please use precaution. Call your local wildlife center and do not play a hero. Reporting from Barnstable, I am Queen Banda of WCTV. They are so adorable. Bob White said that if he happens to have a den of foxes underneath his deck, well, he's not going to call any wildlife center. He's just going to keep them and nurture them himself. Those are his words. Just gets to show you, some people just don't listen. Anyhow, we're moving on to our next program, and this is a brother and a sister who have decided to give back to veterans in their own unique way through helping them connect with their dogs. They funded the Leave Finding You Sanctuary, a nonprofit that reduced the rate of canine euthanasia. It also improves coping skills of veterans within their new reality, and also they help manage the impact of PTSD, which ripples throughout our communities. Finding You Sanctuary is located in Franklin. And here is a little bit about the brother and sister.
Hi, I'm Lynn Carley. I am co-founder, chairman of the board, and lead behavior specialist.
Hi, I'm Chuck McStay, and I am also co-founder and president of the board and, executive director. So Finding You Sanctuary is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're established in 2014. And we have three missions. One is to rescue dogs from euthanasia, and then to pair them with veterans with invisible wounds. And then a little further down the road, when those two core missions are accomplished, we'll be adding a third mission, which is to reach out to the local community and engage them in the process of the first two.
So my role in having the nonprofit and calling it Finding You Sanctuary is that it started all when the beginning of the war, and I just wanted so much to help dogs have a place to be when their veteran owners had to leave them, and have them there for when they came back.
So statistically, veterans, just in Massachusetts alone, there are 80,000 reported veterans with PTSD. Now that's not even PTS, that's just PTSD. Now that's estimated by the Veterans Association, or administration rather, as being a fraction, something like 10%. And so there's a lot of need out there for the veterans themselves. So we like to step up, and that's one of the reasons why we're working with the veterans. Now, as far as rescue dogs, there are 3.3 million rescue dogs, or abandoned dogs. By the way, they're both abandoned, in essence. So the 3.3 million abandoned dogs, there's still 700,000 that are not rescued through the rescue community, which has really stepped up in the last 3 or 4 years. It has reduced that euthanasia rate from 3.3. Just a couple of years ago, it was 1.5. Now it's down to 0.7. So 700,000 dogs are still being euthanized that don't need to be, and we just want to play our role in that.
My method is more of a natural way of being with dogs, but I find that my method is more of showing the person how to be with their dog, which definitely, in order to have the dog do something you want it to do, which it's not agreeing to, you must do it yourself. If you want your dog not to be aggressive and bite people, you must become allowing and friendly around people. And the one thing I do find, and I even go through it myself, is when you're walking your dog, it's the biggest complaint I have. My dog is crazy on the leash, seems aggressive when I see people and their dogs. And so I walk with the person that's complaining about that. The first thing that comes out of their mouth is, look, here it comes, gonna have a problem. Here comes a dog and a person. And I say, smile at that person. Think to yourself, it's okay that they're out. Isn't it great that dog gets to be out too? Instead of, uh-oh, we have problems, we have dogs coming. It just means we need to learn to be, as we're going to eventually do, is have the community involved. And you must be open to having people in your lives, to have out there with you, walking with the dogs. The dogs love each other, but the aggression starts from anxiety, and we all have anxiety. And so that's what my method is, and it did not start out that way. It just started out helping veterans to connect with their dog, to watch, and then I can show them how they can watch their dog's behavior mimic theirs, or mirror it, as they say, and then I help them teach. After I've taught them that, then that's when you can start to heal your soul and your dogs at the same time, because that's opening up to the world.
Well, what we learned from Dr. Edward Tick, who is well known for taking veterans to Vietnam to meet their counterparts so that they can both heal together, was that there is a reciprocal social contract. We ask veterans to do terrible things in our name, to keep us safe,
Yes.
and to keep freedom alive around the world. We need to help them prepare while they're in combat, and also support their family structure while they're there, because they're all left behind, and to fend for themselves. And then also to receive them back home after they've experienced these traumas. And so that's our reciprocal social contract with the veteran. Now with dogs, it's the same thing. We've domesticated them. We've asked them to not be so natural, to live in a setting that's not natural to them, to live outside of the natural pack mentality that they have. And so once we take over that responsibility, truly, then we are also engaging in that reciprocation, taking care of them, And that's why the rescue dog community has been so successful, is because people are really attaching themselves to it. And so we combine both, because they're both misunderstood and often abandoned, not just by their families, because they're just misunderstood. And so we put them together. Yeah.
This is ongoing for life. This is a lifelong thing that all of us should go through. We all have our issues, and that's what we found with veterans, was that we won't drop them. And their dogs will always, we can help them with their dogs when they need it.
That's why the sanctuary
The
concept.
sanctuary, yeah, having them be able to have bad days and say, you need to take my dog, I'm having a rough day. Absolutely, and when you're ready, you can come back or stay here. And for us, the program is probably definitely for about 3 to 4 months. And we do put a lot of time into helping them learn structure and then helping them move out of structure, because life isn't always structured. And once that happens, it doesn't stop.
We've developed a program. Lynn and I went through extensive research with the VA. We've been with VA counselors, and we've been with other nonprofits and their boards. And we've gone to generals.
Yes.
We've spoken with them directly. I've spoken with other countries. There was a colonel in another country, very familiar with our system, and also the rates of PTSD, PTS, and other types of inner wounds. The Finding You Sanctuary has a number of phases to go. We've done the development phase. We have the structural phase in place. We are a 501c3. We also have a 7-member board. We have standardized meetings, and we have a structure in place. We have an entire program, and all of that's set up and ready to go. What we now need to do is slowly increase the number of veterans that Lynn is able to work with. That's part of kind of a trial period where we work out the bugs in the program. Again, all this is free to all the veterans that participate. Right now we're looking for veterans with dogs that have challenges in their behavior. The reason for that is because our facility is not prepared for the rescuing of dogs, because that takes a great deal of care and time in order to be able to even prepare them and get them, gather them and prepare them. So the next phase would be develop the facility. We have a tremendous facility. Now our board has wisely asked, why this facility? Why not go out and find a new facility? Why not buy land and build a building, and so on and so forth? So the reason that we're looking to use this facility is because this is Lynn's home. There's a caretaker, 24/7, present. Also, there's a kennel license already here. Try to get a kennel license out there. Also, buy land, build a building. So for a fraction of the cost and for a much shorter period of time in terms of turnaround, we can rehab structurally this building, set it up, fit it out, and then make it a place where Lynn's willing to give up some 80% of her property and her privacy in order to make this project happen and provide a sanctuary for both the rescue dogs and the veterans themselves. Right now, phase one, we're looking to raise money to be able to provide Lynn with two main things. Number one, time and focus. And number two is to have a vehicle that's reliable, that can get her to the veterans' homes, and also go with them and her pack dogs, because she does take pack animals as part of the process. So those are the two first things. That's about $50,000. So we're looking to raise that amount of money as soon as possible. Phase two is really, let's work on the facility. Once we get the facility ready, then we can bring the rescue dogs into the equation, which means we can bring veterans into the equation that don't have dogs. And then we can start to bring the community into the equation as well. That's more of about $250,000, somewhere in the 250 range, which also includes not only the structural aspect of the building and the fitting out, but also the exterior with the fencing, the yards, the play yards, the training yards, the seasonal indoor training that we have available, and so on. Meeting areas, and also it's just basically make this place functional so that we can serve as many as possible. Currently, Lynn is serving between 1 and 3 veterans a year. We'd like to step that up to between 40 and 60. We can do that after our first full year of operation. We could actually expand it beyond that because we have an outside facility that will be a staging area for rescue dogs, which will maximize the quality and the selection of the dogs and the pairing with the veterans. So all of this is step by step. Our annual operating is estimated when we're fully operational to be somewhere around $750,000. And so that's what we're looking to do, and that's where we're looking to go.
It is the money holding us back. That is the bottom line. And I always hated that thought, but I'm just saying money's necessary. That's what makes things go. And so that is why we're doing this. We really would love to raise enough money to do the work, to get out there, to help veterans, to help dogs. That's just the bottom line, period. Money's important.
When a veteran first discovers that they have PTSD, it's a challenging time. It can be very extreme. That's not really a case for us to work with. That's where the VA is phenomenal. They come in, they take care of, in a triage kind of approach, the initial needs. Once that is done, and now they need a long period of time of stabilization. That's where we come in. We help them stabilize that part of it. We're not qualified to do those extreme cases. We're not looking to do that. But we are looking to do our part, which is small in some respects and large in the others. Because when a veteran first discovers that they have PTSD, the critical period of time is 4 years after they're out of the military. If they can stay alive that 4 years, then we've had a success rate. The suicide rate is tremendous within that 4-year period.
Welcome back. So now we are going to take a look at a program I did a couple months back on an issue that is still prevalent today, and that is vaping. A teacher at Wareham Middle School is teaching kids about the dangers of vaping products. Take a look. In a world of growing addiction and peer pressure, a local school nurse is teaching her students the tools they will need in order to combat the harmful trends. E-cigarettes and the dangers of vaping is a hot topic at Wareham Middle School.
My daughter told me a couple of years ago that kids were vaping in a class that she was in.
Consequently, she came across the Catch My Breath program, a cigarette and vaping lesson that focuses on peer pressure resistance, the dangers surrounding drug usage, and misleading advertising tactics.
It was just kind of a lucky thing that I happened to came across at the right time when I was hearing about it. And they seem very effective. So, and then now, of course, the whole vaping thing is blown up, and there's so much going on. It's even more vitally important with all these horrible illnesses that are happening.
Did you have a conversation with the students to talk about why they are vaping and what their path was to vaping?
Yes, when we first start, when I very first introduced the lesson, I have a little discussion with them. The young lady who had said that she stopped, I remember her response at the beginning, because she was quite honest about it. She said it looks cool. She said it looks cool. So there's a coolness factor that I've noticed with the advertising. And the kids, show me more. It turned out when I questioned them a little bit more, I think this was last year, they said on YouTube, there's a lot of YouTubers who are vaping, and they show these tricks that look cool. And I think a lot of the young boys were encouraged that, like, oh, maybe this will help you look cool and you'll get a girlfriend, that kind of thing.
Catch My Breath program was developed by the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston School of Public Health. with the mission to equip students with the knowledge and skills they need to make informed decisions about the use of e-cigarettes. The program celebrates 2 years at Wareham Middle School. Did they seem to understand the pernicious effects of doing such a thing?
I don't think they do.
Okay.
I think that that's what it is. I think that the companies, the e-cigarette companies, have promoted the product in a way. Well, when you say vaping, for example, you think of water vapor. I know in middle school science, that definitely has to do with the standards we cover. So you think of water coming off of the bay, as we see around here in the morning. You don't think of harmful chemicals. So when they see it, they think, oh, it's just water vapor. And I think the companies were encouraging that, but it's not. It's actually an aerosol. It's fine particles when you ignite it, and so it's not a vapor. It's particles that they're inhaling into the lungs, which we now know is so bad. So the kids really don't know that it's dangerous.
The program has generated earnest success. So far, 2 of her students have expressed how the program has empowered them to stand up against peer pressure and the desire to vape.
They seem quite thrilled to be informed about it. They're happy for the news, and they feel kind of empowered, I would say. And sometimes if we have time at the end of the week, I'll have them make posters, or I'll say, do you want to do something more with this? And they say, oh, we'd like to make posters to do something to teach the other kids, because they feel they're knowledgeable now, and knowledge is power.
Now, when we talk about kids, this is the middle school. How young are these kids who are vaping?
Well, I don't hear about it. We don't really have much of a problem with it here. It comes up rarely at the middle school, just here and there, and it's certainly, as far as I'm aware, it hasn't come up as much in discipline. I think it's more of a problem at the high school, but obviously it does happen here and there, and kids are seeing it. And I feel very strongly that 7th grade especially is a really prime time to get these kids with lessons, because from what I understand about their development and their age, I work with a lot of different ages, they're just kind of on the cusp of, are they going to try it? 7th grade for some kids, they might start. 8th grade, 9th, 10th, I think the older you get up into high school, there's a more chance because they're exposed to it. But I feel this is the right age to give them these lessons, yeah.
Are you working with a nurse at the high school to further this lesson, to help those students at the higher level?
No, I don't work with the high school. We don't have a lot of opportunity to meet with them. I am, with other work I'm doing now towards addiction, I am starting to work more with the high school on that. And of course, the e-cigarettes fall under the category of addiction because of the nicotine in it. So I am wanting to do that, and I am looking forward to do that. I've made some connections at the high school, and that's something I'm working on now.
So when we're talking about addiction, you talked about vaping. Also, I'm thinking substance abuse, such as alcohol.
Yes.
All right. Marijuana is also very big.
Yes.
Especially that now it's legal.
Yes.
What other types of addiction are you covering? Because our area and those neighboring towns around the Cape, we are swamped when it comes to opioids addiction. We have lost a lot of people.
Yes.
And some of these kids may be coming from homes where they have lost very prominent people in their homes.
Yeah.
So what other addictions or substance use do you cover, and how do you present it to them in a way that they can fight the idea or the notion of being cool, doing something for just being cool rather than being themselves and to make something better of their lives?
Yes, yes. Well, yes, it's very important. Well, the way I start off addiction is, well, we talk about addiction specifically. We talk about it, and we discuss different substances and things that are addictive, because we talk about, can you be addicted to video games, and what does it mean to be addicted? So we talk about the difference between physical addiction and mental addiction. And so I tell them that some drugs, literally alter the way that the brain works. And some drugs people can, and you'd have withdrawals if you stop taking it, as opposed to a mental addiction where you feel like you need it, but you could stop and there'd be no sign. So we talk about how marijuana can be mentally addictive but not physically addictive. So it's two different types. We discuss that. We talk about addiction in all different forms, And we also talk about why, and on my website, I've posted, because the lists are great, what the kids come up with after we've spent some time discussing it, why you don't want to be addicted. And so they list things like, you know, the cost and what it could do to your family and the trust your friends might have in you, the trouble you can get in school. And I did this, I remember, towards the end of last year. One young man who was in the class, he said, wow, I never thought about all the consequences to being addicted. So we talk about the opioid addiction and how now the problem has ballooned so much because of people being prescribed painkillers from their doctors, and how that's created a whole, you know, another level to the problem. And how kids had gone into their parents' medicine cabinets or grandparents' medicine cabinets and taken pills sometimes, just thinking, not knowing what it was as an experiment, and how that led to it.
She acknowledges that with the legalization of substances such as marijuana, one way to combat the problem is focusing on postponing rather than abstaining.
So the research I'm doing, being back in school, is showing me that a lot of these abstinence-only programs for drug education really didn't work. The DARE program, which a lot of people thought it was abstinence-only, they say that what works more effectively is teaching kids to at least postpone it, you know, accept the idea. I mean, in this culture, honestly, you know, television, movies, you know, everywhere you look, if you think about it, we do a lot of promotion of drugs and alcohol and stuff that is addictive. So we have to recognize the fact that that's there. The kids see it. Of course, they're curious about it. And we also kind of make it look glamorous and sophisticated sometimes. So you know, there's a good chance that they're probably going to want to try some of these things later. So I say to them, if you could just wait, because your brain is developing. I show them this clip. We look at a couple of other pieces of evidence that speak to the same facts, and I think that does resonate with them. It's like, okay, try it, but how about you just wait? You know, wait until you're that much older, and yeah.
Now, these are all like viable lessons that you're teaching here. I'm thinking that what are different ways you can involve an entire community? Therefore, when you don't have your eyes on your kids, somebody else can watch them for you.
I'm glad you asked that question. I'm glad you asked that question. So I've recently gone back to school at Northeastern University, working on a doctorate of education, and the way that the program runs is we follow, or we are being taught to follow a model called action research. And so what I'm going to do is work with the community. I've already made contact with Lieutenant Correa at the Wareham Police, and he told me about a drug court. So I'm in touch with a probation officer there who's going to allow me to come in and kind of see how it works. So ultimately what I want to do is work with different members of the community who are stakeholders in the problem of addiction, who work with it, first responders, programs around town that help with addiction. And I want to get their input on what they think kids need to learn, what are the lessons that even hopefully speak to people who do have addiction problems, say, what do you think maybe would have stopped you when you were younger, or do you have some advice? And then create a new set of addiction lessons that address specifically the problems that people in our town see as the bigger issues.
Hello and welcome back. We are watching, or you are watching, and we are broadcasting live from our WC TV studio in Wareham. This is Good Morning Wareham, your source for local news, weather, traffic, and more information. And now for a moment in history, let's take a look at where we were today in history. Okay, so on this day in science history, no murder happened. But Watson and Crick discovered DNA's chemical structure in 1953. Two scientists at Cambridge University found that DNA is kept in a double helix structure, giving clues to how it functions in cells. DNA, short term for deoxyribonucleic acid, contains the genetic information for all life. This genetic info is used as a blueprint for the proteins that have so many jobs in the body. Thanks to Watson and Crick's discovery, we know a lot more about how life works. Both of them won the Nobel Prize in 1962. Also, on this day in television history, the final episode of MASH aired in 1983. The show first aired on CBS in 1972 and actually had a slow start, almost getting canceled in its first season. After the show caught on, it stayed in the top 20 shows on air until it ended. The beloved show lasted for 11 seasons, and its final episode was 2 hours and a half long. 2 hours and a half long. Over 75% of all television viewers watched the series' final episode. And also today in religious history, Pope Benedict XVI resigned in 2013. Benedict was the first pope in 600 years to give up his position, saying that it was his old age that forced him to give up such position. The 85-year-old German was succeeded by the current pope, Pope Francis I, and he was the first South American pope to ever be elected. A quick thing to resolve there, maybe they should be elected while they are younger, so they don't have to quit their position. Anyhow, and also for today's birthday, shout out goes to hockey player Sean McCarron, born in Waltham, Mass. McCarron played for teams like the Boston Bruins. He won the Stanley Cup in 1992 with the Pittsburgh Penguins. With the with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And that is all for this day in history segment. To learn more cool historical facts, you can go online. Repeat that last history segment, and today we are celebrating the birthday of a hockey player, Sean McCarron, who was born in Waltham, Massachusetts. McCarron played for the teams like Boston Bruins. He won the Stanley Cup in 1992 with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And that concludes this morning history segment. To learn more cool historical facts, you can go online under history.com. So the coffee segment is next, but first let's take a look at a program I did on a local seamstress. She's located in Bourne, and what she does is she takes donated prom dresses and fixes them up so children, girls who are coming from low income households and those in foster care can actually get a beautiful dress and attend prom. Here's a little bit of her story. A local seamstress's generosity is making it possible for underprivileged girls to attend prom.
Hi. Good morning. Welcome. Come in. Thank you.
Working out of her home office, Ma Duke's Alterations and Quilting, Regina Hupgood shows WCTV her prom dress collection.
I wash them, hand wash them, press them, find out if there's any stitching that needs to be done, and they're ready to go.
As a foster mother, Regina strives to make every girl feel special, and this includes going to prom. She recently reached out to Wareham and Bourne community through their Facebook page, asking girls to donate their used prom dresses. So tell us about the need within our region. How many are we talking about? How many girls really need and could use
lot.
this service?
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah, I've had a lot of girls that come in.
Regina works with DCF, Wareham, and Bourne High School to get in touch with foster kids in need of prom dresses. So these girls come, they take a look at these beautiful prom dresses. They say, I love this one. Mm-hmm. And then what's the next step?
The next step would be to try it on.
Okay.
And if the mom says it's okay, yep, she can wear it, because not all parents allow certain dresses. Some are a little bit more revealing than others. If the dress fits, if it's too big, needs to be altered, I'll do the alterations. They come back, do a second fitting, and the dress is there. The only request I have is if when they're done with the prom, they bring the dress back and it recycles again.
Okay, so they do not get to keep the dresses forever.
If they want to, they can. But since it is being donated, it would be my way of having them to learn to give back. So it's a learning experience for them. You get something that someone else didn't use that I could have that's pretty. Let me give back to the next girl.
Are you thinking of getting something for the guys, for the young boys?
Sure,
okay.
Sure. I mean, most of the guys rent a tux. Guys are different from girls. Girls, I want the dress, I want the pretty dress. And guys are like, okay, get me in the suit and get me out of the suit. So if there are, guys out there that want to donate a suit that they've had in the past, that'd be perfect.
Regina says the dress is available to girls for any needed occasion. She is currently looking for larger size dresses. To learn more about Regina's charitable work, or if you are interested in donating or finding a dress, please reach her online at Ma Duke's Alterations and Quilting. Great work there by Regina, and really you can reach her online, especially on Facebook and on Google. When you just type in Ma Duke's Alterations and Quilting, you will find her if you want to donate or get a dress. So we're going to move on to our coffee segment video, and this is a conversation that took place earlier this week on Monday when we had the Wareham Land Trust, our program coordinators in the studio, to talk about the programs that are currently ongoing. Take a look. Welcome to our coffee segment. With me is Mike Perrin, the Land Stewardship Coordinator for Wareham Land Trust, and Melissa Millett, Youth Education Coordinator. They're in studio today to talk about the many programs that some have already started and some about to start very soon, that are free for you. So all you have to do is just, check their website and get off your house.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having us, Queen.
Thank you for being here. Yeah. So I know you want Melissa to do all the talking today. We got that established.
I was on last time.
You were on last time. But last time you did talk briefly off camera about your bird program, right?
That's right, yeah.
So tell us about that.
Sure. So I'll be hosting monthly bird walks with a theme that fits the birds that you can find of the month. So this month in February, we had winter waterfowl. So on the first Saturday and the third Wednesday, I lead bird walks from 9:30 to 11. The locations change depending on where we're going to see those birds. We hosted our most recent one was this Wednesday. We saw 19 different species. I think of those, there were 9 or 10 species that were duck. And we even saw one of my favorite winter residents called the horned grebe. It's a little football-shaped bird with a long neck and a very pointy, small, stubby bill. So that was pretty exciting for me. We had 5 people come on, and everyone was able to see those birds. Everyone was able to connect with the local ecology, learn something about ornithology, and just hang out, and it was very nice.
So you said what, an hour? How long?
An hour and a half.
An hour and a half of walking.
Yep.
So what is? Tell us about the nature of that walk. You
Sure.
stop every second. How do you help
Yes.
them to connect?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the ducks, each time it's going to be a little different. For the ducks, it was a lot of stop and go, stationary. So we would pick one location and we'd look at all the different flocks of ducks or the individual ducks that were out there. I bring a large lens camera so I can take photos of the individuals that we're seeing out there so people can really feel like they're getting a good look. And then for some of our, those were more, let's say, urban walks where we're out behind the Wareham Land Trust office on Main Street looking out at the marsh out there. But when we're walking through forests, it's a lot of stop and go. It's a lot of listening. So if you hear something, kind of stopping there and being quiet and seeing if whatever's making that noise will come out for us.
Whatever's making that noise to come out for you. Okay.
Scary, right?
Yes. No, that's
Especially when it's a little chickadee this big, yeah.
Okay, so they hear noise and then they say, what am I listening to?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you give them the entire background about that.
That's right. And lots of fun facts about birds because birds are really such fascinating creatures that I can list off a bunch of trivia of them and people seem to really engage with that. Yeah.
Well, give us a couple.
Sure.
Okay.
So I just mentioned the black-capped chickadee.
Yeah.
That is our Massachusetts state bird. And to bring back to the seasonality of the black-capped chickadee, they are these little tiny birds, not weighing more than maybe a dozen grams. And what they'll do is they'll actually enter torpor, which is, you can think of it as like half hibernation at night. So they go into half hibernation and shiver, 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 and are kind of just frozen in time in the winter to keep warm. And they do this in big groups so that they can keep warm together, but they actually enter this state of hibernation. Chickadees will also grow their brains more than double their size going into the winter so they can remember where they store all of their seeds, all of the food that they're going to have. And then come spring, their brain shrinks and they get a little cuter and goofier again.
What?
Yeah, yeah. So come on my bird walks. There's lots of information like that.
Privilege given to birds. Why can't my brain grow?
Evolution. Yeah.
What? We needed that.
You have the grocery store. The chickadee needs to remember what trees he cached the seeds in, right? Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
very fascinating. So this is typical, this kind of trivia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Wow.
connecting it to the time. Obviously, this is winter time, so the birds are acting a little differently than they would in the fall, spring, summer. They're really focused on survival.
Okay.
Yeah. So my next bird walk will be on March 7th, this next Saturday, and we will be looking at winter residents, so songbirds that come to your feeder during the winters or might hang out in those shrubby areas around your house.
Good. And also, I had a question for you. How can people attract more birds?
Yeah, so you can put out bird feeders. Bird feeders are a big thing that can, it's kind of debated whether or not birds are actually helped by bird feeders in the winter, but it has been proven that it is supplemental food for them that's very easy to find. So they do have a little bit of an easier time when you put out the bird feeders. You can also plant native vegetation that the birds can actually eat the seeds, unlike our ornamental or maybe invasive species that the birds can't utilize as well as the native species.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're gonna move to you, Melissa, the youth education coordinator.
Yes.
I went to your LinkedIn profile. Let me follow in because I did.
Oh,
So,
gosh.
it's my business to snoop.
It's okay.
So Melissa has a Bachelor of Arts in International Relations, Economics, and Spanish in 2017. She's currently pursuing her Master's of Science in Environmental Policy and Management with a focus on natural resource management.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Fantastic. So Spanish to
Yeah, kind of a strange switch over,
Mm-hmm.
but I have always had a huge passion for being outside and for the environment in general. So when I graduated undergrad, I wasn't exactly sure which direction I wanted to go, and I got more into leading nature tours, kayak tours, paddleboard tours, and I'm also a naturalist on a seal tour on Cape. So kind of got back into the environmental sphere and decided to pursue a master's.
Fantastic. Wow. It's not that easy. It's hard to say, no, just decide to pursue a master's. Okay. Anyhow, so you run the youth education
Yes,
programs. Our recent article, I believe, was under Wareham Week. They talked about the Wareham Land Trust Passport Program.
Yes, yes.
Tell us about it.
So I launched the passport program a few weeks ago. It is available through our Facebook or through our website. You can just download it right to your computer and print it out immediately. It just requires a double-sided printer. You can print black and white or color. And it just has a few different activities and as well as a map that shows all of the properties and trails that are available in Wareham. In relation to all of the schools, so that the youth are more able to look at that map and figure out exactly which trails or properties are around them, which green spaces are more accessible to them. It's been proven in a few different studies that the earlier you get people involved and passionate about their own community and their own environment, the more that they are going to be willing to help and advocate for that environment in the future. So it really is important to get as many youth as possible interested in protecting and conserving the environment around them, just in order to preserve those green spaces and that environment for the future.
When we're talking about youth, are we talking about elementary?
So the passport program is more geared toward elementary school or even younger. There are a few different sections where they can draw or write. So even if the child is not at the level of being able to write out full sentences, they can absolutely still partake in this program, which is really kind of where I wanted to go with it. However, if there are any high schoolers or even adults who want to do that program, they absolutely can. You do get a certificate that makes you an official Wareham Outdoor Explorer if you complete the program. So if you feel like you want that certification, you can absolutely fill out the program, no matter what your age is.
So the program tells you which place to explore, what to look for, and then you report on what you have found.
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. And we're going to be doing another iteration of it in the spring. Well, this was the spring, so another summer, fall, and winter that may feature more specific Wareham Land Trust activities as well.
Now, at these programs, do kids go out there with their parents or teachers?
Normally with their parents, but it's really however they can get outside. So if that's with a care after school program, whether that is...
I apologize that we have to cut our program short this morning, but we'll have the full program later during the 6 o'clock re-airing tonight. Thank you so much for joining us for this morning program. We will be back on Monday with plenty more. Have a lovely weekend, Wareham.